Hello everyone, welcome to Cyberscoop TV. I'm Greg Otto, your managing editor. We're coming to you live from the floor of the 2017 RSA conference. And I'm talking with Harley Geiger, the Director of Public Policy for Rapid7. Harley, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, new administration is in and we're seeing a lot of the same arguments over policy that we saw towards the end of the Obama administration. One in particular, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Kind of talk to me about how you see that changing and what the future holds for the CFAA going forward.
So the problems of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act are the same as they were, as you said, over the past several years. Those problems are not going to go away or resolve themselves. It will take congressional action to actually change the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, barring any sort of prosecutorial discretion or policy within the White House not to prosecute in certain ways. And I think that we will see the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act change in order to give law enforcement some more powers, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. There are some ways that it should change in order to help take down botnets, for example. On the other hand, the prospects of limiting the CFAA so that it is not as overbroad, so that it doesn't sweep in ordinary internet users or independent security researchers, that may be a harder lift with this Congress or this administration. One reason in particular is there has been a change in the Senate Judiciary with Senator Feinstein now instead of Senator Leahy. It is unclear to what extent she will be open to scaling back the CFAA. I'm not saying that she won't. It's unclear. Same thing with the Trump administration. It's just there's a lack of clarity around whether or not they'd be willing to scale it back as opposed to pushing for greater powers for law enforcement, which they've clearly expressed a preference for. So unsure, but it's always been unsure. It doesn't change that much, and the arguments are the same, and we'll see where it goes.
So you talked about Senator Feinstein. Senator Feinstein was also a big proponent of a backdoor into encryption, or trying to figure out a way to have law enforcement access encrypted files whenever they needed it. There has been some ramping up with the new administration, some people talking about what they need to do in order to have that sort of backdoor, but then there's been some other people like Will Hurd from Texas who has said we don't need to worry about backdoors because there are so many holes otherwise that there's no reason for us to actually mandate a backdoor. How do you see this playing out?
Again, unclear. But the arguments are the same,
right?
And there are a lot of different ways around a backdoor, and there is a very strong sentiment against the backdoor from all of the tech community, civil society, and a lot of businesses. So I think that it would be a very pitched battle if it did come down to legislation that might look like it will actually move. And which way it goes is unclear, because what has changed are not the arguments but the people. You mentioned a change on the Senate Judiciary with Feinstein now being ranking member, and she was, yes, the author of legislation to have a backdoor. And then Trump also had criticized Apple during the San Bernardino case.
Right.
So while they may be more in favor of it, this argument has also been playing out for several years. The arguments are well established, and the previous administration, including FBI Director Comey, seemed to back off on the idea of a backdoor because it would be detrimental to security. The NSA has come out and said that they don't think a backdoor is necessary. Other ways that this could go would be to increase government powers for hacking, increase the funding for hacking. In some ways, that's a natural evolution for law enforcement. The question is, how will due process be built into that? But that's our preferred position, as opposed to a backdoor into encryption, which would blow a hole into the secure underpinnings of the internet and many of the products that we have now as consumers. So I don't think the issue is going to go away. It will come up again, whether it's through a San Bernardino scenario or other countries. Other countries are also looking at this issue and having their own legislation that seem to require backdoors. It's not like they use the phrase technical assistance, and not clear whether or not that will be interpreted to require companies to decrypt. But that could edge the discussion further in the United States. So when it will come up, unknown, but I think it will come up in the next 4 years.
So Donald Trump is looking at possibly signing an executive order that is related to cybersecurity. A lot that has been in there is a lot of reviews, 90-day, 120-day reviews to sort of figure out how the federal government is situated when it comes to cybersecurity. But if you look back at the Obama administration, especially towards 2015, 2016, they had already gone through that. So is that executive order really defeating what needs to be done inside the federal government, in your opinion?
So there have been multiple drafts of the executive order. The
Right.
executive order at this time has not been published.
Correct.
So it is completely subject to change. The latest draft that has been circulated, that was rumored to possibly be signed this week, but then the Michael Flynn thing happens, and so now it's been delayed. It may still happen this week, but that latest draft did seem more consistent with the groundwork that had been laid in the Obama administration, and that it was more about modernizing federal IT, requiring agencies to follow the NIST cybersecurity framework, both of which we think are positive, and they even included a nod there to preserving internet freedom and trying to make sure that the multi-stakeholder process, which is how the ICANN runs internet governance, and making sure that works for security, privacy, and American interests, and so forth. So I actually think that executive order, the latest draft that we saw, compared to some of the other executive orders that did not have a very warm welcome, seems pretty mature, seems pretty well thought out, and does not seem to do any harm. The review, I don't think, is necessarily a bad thing, because it helps the new administration gets their footing. And like I said, it seems like it's consistent with the groundwork that had been laid by the Commission on Enhancing the National Cybersecurity, which was the blue chip commission that Obama had put into place and had a very good report towards the end of his term. I think especially the modernizing of federal IT and the pushing or the promotion of the NIST framework within the agencies is very positive.
Great. Yeah. Harley, appreciate your insights. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, no, thank you.
For all of our videos, check out our YouTube channels, and for more on the RSA conference and all things cybersecurity, check out cyberscoop.com. I'm Greg Otto. Thanks for watching.